Hello everyone! If you're wondering who I am, my name is Talented Geek, and I am actually one of Lemming Rush's very first friends. Now, if you're wondering why he isn't here right now, well, he makes World of Tank videos, and in this video, I'm going to be making a thumbnail tutorial. Now, you may have seen my work occasionally on his channel through some thumbnails, like these ones right here. And every time he keeps asking me, how do I make these thumbnails? So in this video, I'm going to be showing him and you guys exactly how I make these thumbnails. So, let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to need to get, other than Photoshop, is a screenshot or a variety of images to work with. So let's use this image right here. This image is personally one of my favorites that he took. So why? Because it has a lot of room on the edges for us to crop with, plus it also shows a lot of light on the tank, so that way we can have a lot of fun playing with the colors. So now that we have our image, let's get started. So in Photoshop, this is going to be one of the images that we're going to be making today. This is personally one of my most favorite thumbnails I've made for his channel, and we're going to make something pretty similar to this. So what we're going to need to get started is we're going to have to go to File, New, and then once we're here, we're going to have to make sure that the width is at 1280, the height is 720, and you also want to make sure the background contents are transparent. After that, you're set to go. Just hit OK, and you should see something like this appear. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drag the image into Photoshop. So just go to wherever it is on your computer and then pop it in. So I have the image right here, so let's click and drag this into Photoshop. Plop it in. So now that it's in Photoshop, if you see a bit of a gap here at the top or the bottom, what you want to do is just simply click and drag until it magnets to the bottom and snaps to the top. After that, just hit enter, and there we go, now it's placed. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to name the background layer, so that way we can easily keep track of these layers. So I'm going to name it Original Background, if I can spell today. There we go. So now we have our original background. Next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to crop the image. So in your toolbox on the right hand side right here, you want to select the crop tool. Once you do that, click the image itself with the layer selected on the right. And now that we have this selected, so what we want to do is we want to keep the tank or our main subject in our bottom two rows right here. Now keep in mind, depending what you're editing for the thumbnail, this can always vary, but for me with World of Tanks, I generally like to keep the tank usually within these bottom two squares right here. Of course, every now and then I make an exception, but we're going to follow this rule today. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a corner right here. You want to hold Shift, click, and then drag. And we're going to make it around right, let's say around right here. Let's also move the image a bit more this way. There we go. So now if we hit enter, ta-da, now the tank fills up a whole lot more of the image. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take our magnifying glass right here, go to the image, right click, and then go to fit on screen. That way we can see it a little bit more better. So now that we see that the tank is covering up a large portion of the screen, and we also have a large empty space up here for the text, it's going to be a whole lot easier. Now, keep in mind, this is one of the main rules I always make for thumbnails. If it's for video games or real life, doesn't matter, but for thumbnails, what I usually do is for the bottom right square right here, I try to leave this as empty as possible or keep nothing important down there. Simply because in YouTube, the bottom right square is usually where they keep the timestamp, and you don't want anything important being covered by there. What we're going to do first is we're actually going to crop out the tank so that way we can actually make it pop out. So how are we going to start this? Well, that's pretty easy. If you go to the toolbox on the right here, you're going to see the pen tool. So what you are going to do is select that pen tool, and then we're going to start cropping around. But it's going to be a little bit tough if we're going to get rough edges. So what we're going to do first, before the pen tool, is we're going to get the zoom tool or the magnifying glass. And we're just going to click until we zoom in until I'm satisfied. So there we go. I'm pretty much happy with this zoom length. So what we're going to do is we're going to once again select the pen tool on the side. Once we select the pen tool, then after that, we're going to start by down here. Generally, you want to start somewhere around the border of the frame. And then after that, we can start cropping the outline. So let's just start cropping around. Alright, if you ever make a mistake like I'm doing right here, so as you can see, I'm making lots of mistakes right here, you want to do Control Z, and that will backtrack the last line we just did. If you keep doing that over and over again, you'll see that the line keeps coming back. If you want to backtrack even more steps, what you want to do is Control Alt Z. Z, 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 Z. There we go. Now we're back to where we were before. In fact, I think I might do it just a few more times. There we go. So what you want to do is you want to try and outline as close as you can the outline of this tank, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. I'm going to fast forward. Alright, now that we're getting pretty close to the edges here, what we're going to do is, now that we've finally reached the border, we're actually going to cut a little bit extra space out of the frame here, drag over here, and then click, click, oh, Control Z, click. So now that we have fully linked the tank, so now if we go back to fitting it on screen, as we can see, we now have the tank outlined. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to select the layer that we're going to copy this from. We're going to right click, make selection, hit OK. And now we have the tank fully outlined. So the next step that we're going to do to make this actually on its own separate layer is in the toolbox, we're going to select the rectangular marquee tool. I can't speak today. Select that, right click the tank, and we're going to do layer via copy. Now that we've done that, if we turn off the original background layer, ta-da, we now actually have the tank fully outlined. So the next step that we're going to do to actually make the tank pop out is in the layer 1, I'm actually going to rename this to tank layer. You can rename it to whatever you want, but I'm going to name it tank layer for now. So select the tank layer that you have, right click, go to blending options, and just to make it stand out for the moment, we're going to add a stroke, and personally I like to do the color white. So now we have a white outline of the tank, and we hit OK. We can now see that the tank and the barrel right here actually has a bit of a gap in it. We can still see the sky in the background. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to zoom in onto this spot that we need to fix. Ooh, let's just zoom out a little bit. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to select the pen tool, just like how we did before. And we're just going to roughly select the area that this is on. So just do this. Now it's selected, right click, make selection, okay, and we're actually going to hit the delete key. There we go. Now it's no longer part of the layer, and we can also see a stroke right here. So if we do Control D, that deselects it, and if we go back to the fit on the screen, we can now see that this looks a bit more natural. Now, of course, there are a couple of areas that we can excuse, like these holes in the tracks and the hole in the back of this grate, but that's excusable. So the next step that we're going to do right here is we're actually going to make the tank pop out a little bit by making the background black and white. So what we're going to do is on the bottom right here with the new layer and everything else, is we're going to select this icon right here, and we're going to select black and white. Once we do that, as we can see, everything is now black and white. We don't want everything black and white, so what we're going to do is in the layers over here, is we're going to drag the black and white in between the tank layer and the original background. Now if we go back to the full image that we're working with right here, we can see that the tank is in color, but the background is not. Personally, I would like the background to have a little bit of color, so what we're going to do to fix this is we're going to go over to opacity and fill right here, and under fill or opacity, doesn't matter. Personally, I like messing around with fill, but with fill, just drag it down a little bit. I'm going to say around 65-ish, 64, that's good enough. So we can see 64, it still has a bit of color, but it still looks a bit bland, making the tank pop out a bit more with its vibrant colors. So the next step that we're going to do right here is we're actually going to make the tank itself more colorful and pop out. So what we had with the original image here is we actually had a blue going on right here. We're going to do a pretty much similar shade of blue. I mean, if we go back to the original image that we had over here, we're going to do the same thing. So just go back to the tank layer that we had before, right click, go up to blending options. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to color overlay. Now that we're in color overlay, we're going to select that. And as you can see, we don't want the entire tank to be gray because that's just not visually appealing. So what we're going to do to start off is we're actually going to select our shade of blue. I actually have it copied to the color code right here. So if you want to copy this, by all means go ahead. But personally, just pick your own color and see which one you think looks best. So just hit OK. And as we can see, we still have the issue that the tank is still pretty blue. So what we're going to do to fix that is we're actually going to go over to blend mode right here. And we are going to select overlay. Now that we have that, suddenly the tank pops out a bit more and the colors look way more better than what it did before. So without it, it looked just like a bland grayish black right here. But with this, it has like a blue that pops out a bit more, makes it seem a bit more friendly. Obviously it's a tank, it's not supposed to be friendly, but you guys get the general idea. So if we go back to stroke right here really quick, let's make this a 4 looks pretty nice. Okay, so now we're almost done with the tank right here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a inner glow. What an inner glow does is pretty much it hides all the flaws and mistakes. So if you see a little bit of a background in between like the stroke and the tank itself, or whatever the subject is, then it will hide that pretty well. So if we go to inner glow, as we can see, this is a little too harsh. So we're just going to decrease the size. Oh, select inner glow first. And we're actually going to decrease the size just a tiny bit to around 4. That way we can still see the tank and all of its details, and it also hides a bit of the flaws in the background. After that, just hit OK, and there we go. Pretty much our tank is done. If you guys wanted to add like a drop shadow just to make the tank look a bit more intimidating, here's what we're going to do. We're going to right click, go back to blending options, just like how we were before. We're actually going to select drop shadow. And with the drop shadow right here, it makes it look like it's a paper cutout. So for example, if we increase the distance, we can see it looks a bit more like a paper cutout, just like how I mentioned. However, if you wanted to add like a bit more of like a dark aura around it, here's what we're gonna do. We're actually gonna go to opacity right here. We're gonna make it 100. We're gonna make the distance 0, spread 22, and size 22. Now this is a good place to start off because once we do this, we can now finally get a good start on how big or intimidating we want the shadow to be. Now, obviously we don't want it to look like this because that'll just look pretty gross. So let's just make it down to 22 and this one 22 if we make this a tiny bit bigger. There we go. I'm liking how this looks right here. So if we hit OK, there we go. Now we have now the tank pops out a lot more. So we have the bright outline with the inner glow. It makes the white lines look a bit more, makes them pop out a bit more. Okay, next step that we're going to do right here really quick is we're actually going to add the text in the background. Now, what was the text again? So the Unicum M4190GF guide. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to add 3 layers. And for making your title, you want to find out which words are going to be the most important. So obviously for this title right here, the tank itself is going to be pretty important. So let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a brand new layer. So after we do that, select the text tool. Generally the font me and Lemming Rush use, we use the Lemon Milk font. It just, I don't know, I guess it's just kind of our theme for this thumbnail. So what we're going to do is just click anywhere, or type in the Unicum, and then after that, generally what I do is I select the mouse tool right here. And then once we do that, with the layer selected, we can now drag this around freely and place it wherever we like. So what we're generally going to do, since we have all this space up here, we have like a third of the entire frame, is we're actually going to hit Control-T, and now we can actually mess around with the size and dimensions of this. So what we're going to do is instead of just making it just parallel, we're going to angle this a little bit, just to make it seem a bit more fun to look at. So since this is not going to take up a large space, but we still want it to be readable, we're going to move it around right here. Generally what I do when making text is I try to avoid the corners or the edges to touch the border of the frame itself. So what I generally do is I leave a tiny gap. Sorry, the magnet snap makes it a little bit annoying. I leave a tiny gap Hold shift and adjust the size like so. There we go, this size seems pretty good. Just hit enter, and there we go. And now I'm gonna get all the text placed first before we start editing it. However, what I'm gonna do just to make it a little bit easier to read is I'm gonna right click the text layer that we're on, go to blending options, and I'm gonna add a stroke just to make it easier. There we go, just like how I said before, we're gonna come back to this and edit it. So, after that, we're gonna get the next text layer on. So we're just gonna hit new layer, and let's take a look. So it was M4190GF. So that's what we're gonna do. So, just like before, select the text tool, and just type in whatever your title is, M4190GF. Perfect. All right, and after that, just select the mouse tool or the move tool, and then we want to do Control T. And now we can start messing around just like how we did before. So generally what I do to start off is I generally like to make this the same size. I'm gonna make this, sorry, not same size, same rotation, but make it just a little bit bigger just so it can pop out a bit more. We're gonna do something like this, and what I'm gonna do is after I'm done messing around with the text, is I'm gonna place this behind the tank just to make it a bit more appealing, and so that way the tank actually pops out a bit more. So let's take a look. How about right, yeah, around right here seems good. So just hit enter, and there we go. And just like before, we're gonna add a stroke just to make this a little bit easier to see. There we go. And now we're gonna add the word guide afterwards. So just select a new layer, go to the text tool, and then we're gonna type in guide. After we do that, it's just the same process as before. Control T, rotate it around the same angle. Oop. Control Z, shift, click and drag. There we go. Let me make guide just a little bit smaller because guide isn't as important as the tank itself, but it's still going to be a guide. So I'm gonna make this generally around on the barrel right here. After that, hit enter, right click the layer it's on, blending options, and stroke, hit enter, and there we go. Now we can start messing around with the text because now we have the right placement that we're looking for. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna start off with the M4190GF because these are the most important words. So what I do is I wanna make them a different color from what the Unicum and guide is gonna be. So as we can see in the original right here, I kind of had this metallic look for its color, but for the tank itself, I had it in yellow words. So we're gonna do that this time. I'm gonna make it have yellow words. So go to blending options on the layer itself. Go to color overlay, and let's select the color yellow. Just like how we had before. Boom, perfect. All right, I'm gonna make the stroke a little bit thicker. There we go, that looks nice. And what I'm gonna do, what I actually didn't do in the original, is I'm gonna go to Bevel and Emboss, and I'm actually gonna make the size pretty small. That way it kind of looks like a button or something that would pop out a little bit. But nothing too extreme like this, yeah. I'm not gonna do something like that. If you guys find this appealing, by all means go ahead. Feel free to play around with it. But for me, I usually take it down to 0 or 1, depending, but usually I stick with 0. I then hit OK, and there we go. We're almost done with this middle text right here. We're just gonna move it behind the tank. But first, we're gonna deal with these two right here. So with the Unicum and guide, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make them pretty much exactly the same. So let's start with the Unicum first. So let's right click on the layer, go to blending options, and what we're gonna do, let's take a look. So let's start off, generally what I do is since it's gonna be gray and nothing too spectacular, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it have this metallic look. So we're gonna go to gradient overlay, and let's change the opacity down to 20. Whoops. That's not what we're looking for. Let's make this back to 100%. So, just like how we're gonna fix before, go to gradient overlay, make sure you select it, don't make the mistake I did. Go to opacity, and we're gonna make this 20. Now we can always increase it a tiny bit more if it doesn't look metallic enough, so I'm gonna say 27 looks good enough. Actually, you know what? Let's just stick with the original 20. So now that we have this, let's make the stroke a little bit thicker. Let's try 4. Now let's go down to 3. Yeah, 3 seems good enough. And since there's going to be like a bit of a pixel gap between here, just to fix that, we're going to add a bit of a drop shadow. And just like how we did it before, is we're going to make the opacity 100. We're going to make the distance 0, and the others is going to be 22 and 22. There we go. Now this pops out a little bit, and it has a little bit of a metallic look. So after that, just hit OK. And just so we don't have to do the exact same thing with guide right here, what we are going to do is on the Unicum, or the text layer itself, we're going to right click, copy layer style, go to guide, and then paste layer style. And there we go. Now it's looking pretty identical. However, there's going to be a bit of a drop shadow that's over the tank, and we still have the tank name itself to deal with. So what we're going to do is on the layers itself, let's start with the yellow words right here. So we're going to take the M4190GF, we're going to take that layer, and we're going to drag it down below the tank layer. There we go. Now the tank pops in front. Up here, we're going to go to guide, and we're going to do pretty much the exact same thing. Just pop it under, and there we go. Now the white lines pop up. We're almost done here, guys. I think for the M4190, we're gonna make it have a little bit of a drop shadow. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select drop shadow, just like how I've showed you guys before. I'm gonna make it just go down a little bit. Let's take a look. Maybe a little bit more. Let's bring it down to 8, I guess, with this size. And there we go. Now it kind of looks like it pops out a little bit, but not too much that's harsh on the eyes. So we're almost done here, guys. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a metal overlay, because in World of Tanks, all the tanks are made out of metal. So that will just add to the theme. And personally, I like the metal look itself, and I add that for almost every thumbnail I do. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a brand new layer, drag that to the very, very top. And in the description, I'm going to have this metal overlay that's going to show up in a second, and I'm going to pop it in here. All right, so once we have the metal overlay selected, click and drag it into Photoshop, place, and we should see something like this. So to start off, let's choose the direction that the metal is going to be facing. So start off, if we look at it from the top bottom, it's going to be looking to the left. So we're going to change that to the right. So if we right click and go to flip horizontal while still in the Control Z form, and then we hit enter. There we go. Now you're probably wondering, well, how the heck are we supposed to see the rest of the thumbnail we just made with this metal overlay? Well, that is a very easy fix. What we're gonna do is just like before with the black and white layer, is we're gonna make it from normal to overlay. And there we go. So we're almost done here, guys. However, I personally find these metal lines to be a little bit harsh. So what did I do in the original thumbnail before? I made it down to 50%. Okay, so with fill or opacity, let's do opacity this time. We're gonna make it down to, let's do 51%, pretty much the same thing. And so now, there we go, guys. Our thumbnail is now finally completed. So with this metal overlay, it's not too harsh, but at the same time, it also darkens up the corners and also makes the dark text or the drop shadow, intensifies it a little bit, while also still showing the tank and everything that we've shown. So after that, guys, what we're gonna do to make this compatible with YouTube is we're gonna go to File, Save As, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Save File Type As, and we're gonna select JPEG. Now with JPEG right here, start off, we're gonna need a title. I'm just gonna type in Final M41, hit save, and then this is the important part right here. You want to make this megabytes right here 2.0. I can make an exception for 2.1, but 2.0 is generally the safe bet. So let's see if we can change the quality down to, generally I do 8, because YouTube, from what I've seen, even if this is like a 2.2, it always seems to accept 8 quality for me. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hit OK. And there we go, it's fully rendered. So let's go take a look at our final product. Ta-da, there we go, guys. So our thumbnail is now finally completed. So from earlier, we just had this zoomed out picture right here with a open area up top and a blackish gray looking tank. And we have now turned it into an appealing thumbnail that I'm sure will get you lots of clicks. So there we go, guys. That's how you make your very own thumbnail. Now this can be used for World of Tanks or pretty much any game out there. So if you guys want to see more of my content, feel free to check out my channel. It'll be linked in the description. And if you guys want to see more tutorials like these, or you want to make a video suggestion, feel free to leave so on my channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I guess I'll leave it back to Lemming Rush. I'll see you guys in another video.